And I think the background has been properly laid. But we must also look at what does the bill intend to, what mischief does it intend to cure? Mr. Speaker, it cures the mischief of discretion. That somebody comes in and begins to act in a way and manner he likes. It cures the mischief of lack of precision. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, transition period is a period when the country could be all very vulnerable. So it is a time we must establish some level of certainty. The time when ministers must come in, the time when particular activities, committees, and federal boards must be settled. It is not a time for us to begin to watch the body language of anybody. Mr. Speaker, as a matter of fact, the last time...
Honorable members, lead by example.
The chief whip is doing a good job.
You know he's acting. He cannot be whip at all.
Well, I think the leader has noted your point. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I think that this bill goes to issues of transition, and we must pay particular attention to it. I know in other jurisdictions, for instance, in America, when America was actually wobbling, when there was lack of motivation by the outgoing government to get the transition for President Biden to come in, the transition committee, which was also established by Act of Parliament, was asked to do their job. They were asked to do their job. And they had to, because by the regulations, by the acts, by convention and practice, they needed to do it. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, why this is critically important is that in 2015, we lost about 6 months due to the fact that the cabinet of the present government was not constituted. The opportunity cost for Nigeria was that we could not take off on time. That same thing happened in 2019. So this bill goes to cure that mischief, that we don't allow this federation to be subject to the discretion of an individual. It's a country of rules and a country of laws, and we must be seen to obeying our laws. It's not something that by the time you are constituting a government, the government is half gone. The same thing happens in the states. Somebody is elected governor for 6 months, 1 year, he's not constituted his cabinet. It should not be allowed to happen. So I think that this bill should go to second reading, it should be prudently monitored, and it should cure the effects, the defects of the present government, where we have almost lost about 1 year without a cabinet being constituted. Thank you very much.
Respected colleagues, this is a very straightforward bill, so I beg to put the question. Those in favor of the bill, motion that the bill in its content say aye. Against say nay. The ayes have it. Bill referred to Committee on Special Duties. Clerk is invited the long title for the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to provide for the procedure and ceremony for transition and assumption of the office of the President and Vice President by the President-elect and Vice President-elect, and to facilitate the handover process by the outgoing President and Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and for related matters. Second reading.
1,000. Bill referred to Committee on Special Duties. Respected colleagues, the third order of the day is the Commission of Debate on General Principle of a Bill for an Act to provide for the establishment of National Community Service Scheme to develop an increased sense of social responsibility, a global view of society, and heart for giving back and helping others and political matters standing there honorable. Idem, honorable members would call the bill was read the first time on Tuesday, 17 March 2020, and I invite honorable Idem to move that the bill read for the second time.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, my name is Idem Unyime, member representing Ukanafun, Orugonam Federal Constituency of Akwa Ibom State. Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning to move that a bill for an act to establish a National Community Service Scheme 2020 HB 817 that seeks to make provision for the establishment of National Community Service Scheme and to develop increased sense of social responsibility, a global view of society, and a heart of giving back and helping others in Nigeria be read for a second time. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Seconder. Yes, sir. On a bag of the door in your seat, so I can't recognize you.
Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, my name is Francis Charles Ubiyok. I represent Korabas and Bayan in Eastern Obolo. I'm from Akwa Ibom State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion that the bill be read the second time. I so second.
Adam, lead the debate. Briefly, please.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, once again, my name is Idem Unyime, member representing Ukanafun, Orugonam Federal Constituency of Akwa Ibom State. Mr. Speaker, our respected colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on the general principles on a bill for an act to make provision for the establishment of National Community Service Scheme and for other matters connected therewith. Honorable members, you will recall that this bill was read for the first time on 17 March 2020. The bill seeks to put in place a legal framework for the development and establishment of procedure for punishment of misdemeanor offenders, such as damaging property, petty theft, non-grievous assault, shoplifting, drink driving, etc., to serve the community within which they stay as a form of deterrence and giving back to the society. This will reduce incarcerations.
Honorable members, less noise, please. Listen to the debate.
This will reduce the incarceration and reduce the number of inmates in prisons, minding the fact that our prisons' capacity is overstretched. It will also engage juvenile offenders and reintegrate them into the society. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the National Community Service Scheme is aimed at ensuring that the offenders of misdemeanor offenses are given equal punishment instead of sentencing them into prison. This bill has 26 clauses and vital and consequential provisions set out as follows. Section 1 relates to the establishment of the National Community Service Scheme, which shall be responsible for the development of policies, programs, rules, and regulations, as well as setting standards and encourage court system to include in their penal model sentencing in misdemeanor offenses to community service. Section 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the legislation constitute the composition, establishment of the governing board, tenure of office, cessation and dissolution of the board. The objectives and function of the proposed bill are contained in Section 7 and 8, and it contains paragraph A to M. Section 9 relates to the appointment of the head of the scheme, who shall be, for the scheme, a Director General, and shall be appointed by the President in line with the operational guidelines of the scheme. National Community Service Scheme Bills intends to engage misdemeanor offenders in community service in a bid to save the nation and give back to the immediate communities. The purpose of this bill is to seek support for the Nigerian culture of citizenship, service, and responsibility. The scheme offers a number of positive advantages for the court administration and punitive measures, as it will apply mostly to first-time misdemeanor offenders and juveniles. The bill, when passed, will also help reduce incarcerations and keep people out of already congested prisons. The scheme will focus on court-supervised treatment as an alternative to incarceration, operating the largest alternative prisons program. The country cannot sustain this level of incarceration without a significant impact on individuals, families, and communities. In
The
most
minority
of our
leadership, lead by
correctional
example.
centers,
Please, two
we
rounds
have
your
inmates
debts.
convicted for misdemeanor offenses and thus need to save their terms with either paying back to the society or the victims of their crime. This will also be advantageous to the Nigerian juvenile justice system.
Honorable Adam, I think you can summarize. You have taken your time.
Being it that the system suffers some limitation in the process of litigation. The enactment of the bill into law will not have a direct cost implication on public funds, as the scheme operators will be consisted of public officers
Honorable Toby, you are
already
person
engaged
rowdy in the house.
and are in the service of government at all levels. The desirable outcome of establishing the scheme will have a far-reaching benefit to the nation at large and generations unborn. The scheme will enjoy the benefit of fines applicants as prescribed by courts or other approved authorities.
Honorable
Section 16
Samson,
of the bill
Benue,
empower
Honorable
the scheme to
Samson.
accept gifts
Yeah,
and
cross.
use them for the purpose
Disturbing.
of the establishment. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker and respected colleagues, they need to have the National Community Scheme Establishment Bill 2020 passed into law is timely and a patriotic move which I believe should be supported by this honorable House. I therefore appeal for your overwhelming support that the bill be read for the second time and referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I so submit.
Yes. Thank you. Osai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Distinguished honorable colleagues, I remain Honorable Osai, Nicholas Osai. First of all, I want to thank the mover of the bill. Just that I'm a little bit worried. I'm a little bit worried because one of the cardinal fundamental issues of the legislature, which is among the principles of bill drafting, is bill analysis. And into bill analysis, you're able to check and cross-check laws that are in conflict to each other, including using the constitutional privilege to really understand whether it's within the scope of the Constitution. But it might interest you, Mr. Speaker, that this night Assembly passed a law on Correctional Services Act. And inside that law, most of these issues are embedded in that law. But I don't know whether enacting a new law can advance the body knowledge of our laws or the action of what the other law ought to have, implemented, whether this correct one will still cure that the same one, or there won't be in conflict. I believe, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, that the Correctional Services Act, in fact, that's why it was removed from prison and act as a Correctional Service Act. So I believe, in furtherance to enriching that law, that this law could also be part of the thing to enrich it, but not establishing it differently. I believe that we have done justice to Correctional Service Act. Now, this particular bill that you are talking about is also embedded in Correctional Service Act, because there are certain things that are done in society that Correctional Service Act, all we need to do is to build more facility instead of putting hardened criminals with the one that committed things that ought not to go into the same place with the hardened criminals, can go for community services in line with the Correctional Service Act as enacted by this National Assembly. I believe that is where I see this law. I believe the law can be stepped down for now to do more legislative work on it in terms of compilations, in terms of bill analysis, and in terms of cross-checking all our laws to make sure that this National Assembly will not be a breeding ground for bringing the same law in different aspects. That's my take, Mr. Speaker.
Sekinoma, except if you have otherwise what contributions are is simple. We need to synergize what we are doing. And if it is true that we just pass a law having all those matters they have raised in the same in the act establishing the correction center, and he has other issues now maybe for improvement, is for him to go for reenactment, repeal and enactment. That may be the only way to accelerate or get his own matter attended to. You have any additional information? You say?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Shehu Garba Sarkinoma. I wish to further support the view expressed by my colleague, Honorable Osai. We do understand the thinking behind this bill and the spirit behind it, which is quite commendable. But I think, in line with what Honorable Osai has said, the offenses for which he is proposing, this community, service body to address, some of these offenses are already provided for in the relevant legislation, either the penal code or the criminal code relating to some of these offenses. Most of these offenses are already, the punishment for them are already provided for in the relevant, laws that serve as deterrent. And therefore, the question arises, do we address this provision, the provision in the existing laws, through the establishment of a body like this, or do we go back to the relevant penal codes and criminal code to make amendment to provide for this kind of punishment? I think it is in this line that I believe the point Honorable Osai has raised is very, very relevant. That we need to really re-examine, this bill with a view to ensuring that it is consistent with existing legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Adam, I think the mood of the House is for you to step down the bill for further legislative input or actions. That would have been the ideal thing, because we do not want to drag into controversies. That's my advice to you too, because if the same matter are in another law, establishing an institution, we cannot be duplicating. We have agreed in this House that we need to streamline agencies, not duplicating functions. Yes, sir.
No. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues. My name is Idem Unyime, Mr. Speaker, I pick up the acts that my colleague Usai just mentioned, the correctional centers acts. I pick up that act and I took time to look at the provisions in that particular act, and I saw that there were a lot of features that I have here that are not there, like the community service. So I believe that those minor issues that are not supposed to be given the same treatment with those criminal offenses. I think this bill is seeking to separate them. So I've taken time to check those provisions. I will tell you that this one is quite different from the one in that act that my colleague cited. And I still believe that the essence of having a committee that bills of this nature, is always referred to, is for them to take time to cross-check the one that I've already done as a person, because I've done a research on that.
Now, Eden, you are talking of functions within the same establishment. And that is why the advice given by Honorable Sai is very much apt in line, because all you need to do is to go and take that bill and then look at the shortcomings of what you think should have been improvement there, and bring out and insert those other clauses that you think it should come to play. This is what it's supposed to be. That's how laws are supposed to be made. Not to go again and establish another for the same institution. No, sir. Who's going to be responsible? It's the same institution that have had that act establishing the correction center that will be responsible to oversight what you are now proposing. But if you insist, I will allow you to put a question.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let me allow this man to talk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Toby Okechukwu, and I represent an area of Wejiri Federal Constituency from Enugu State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the bill which seeks to make provision for establishment of national community service scheme and to develop an increased sense of social responsibility is well intended, but it goes a long way in trying to establish the need for us to have alternative punishments that be graduated as per the type of crime you commit. The Correctional Services Act actually deals with the institutional operations of the service.
Acting Chief Whip, please resume your seat.
Thank you, leader, for protecting me. It's incidental that the interventions come whenever I'm speaking. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the operations, really, but the criminal code and the penal code actually provide punishments which, when you are now serving, you go to the correctional facility. And I'm sure that we have punishments such as fines, punishments such as community service, and what is needed. The instrument setting up the offenses says what you are going to do. Looking for it, actually in the Correctional Services Act, might be a bit going too far. The punishments are established by different laws. And when you are now asked to serve the punishment, you go to the correctional service. So I would think that your advice is prudent, and I think you should do further consultation so that in law and in bringing we situate the problem properly in terms of, look, this is where this should belong, and not looking for the punishment or the operations of the scheme where it does not belong. I think you should do some further study regarding the provisions of our laws, the offenses they contain, and then the punishments therein. Thank you very much. I recommend that it should be stepped down for further consultation.
Honorable Eden, you have the opportunity to step down.
And I wish to step down the bill for further legislative engagement. Thank you.
Bill step down for further legislative actions. Respected colleagues, the fourth order of the day is a motion on the decision of the resolution of the House of Representatives on the discharge of an ad hoc committee pursuant to Order 9, Rule 16 of the Standing Orders of the House of Representatives, standing now Honorable Obaka Flata. Honorable Flata is invited to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. I am Obaka Flata. I represent Berniwa Krika Samaguri Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker. I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, position of the resolution of the House of Representatives on the discharge of an ad hoc committee pursuant to Order 9, Rule 16 of the Standing Orders of the House of Representatives. House notes that on Wednesday, 5th May 2021, 12 ad hoc committees were discharged of the referrals made to them, one of which was the ad hoc committee on the need to review the purchase, use, and control of arms, ammunition, and related hardwares by military, paramilitary, and other law enforcement agencies in Nigeria. Informed that on the same date, the ad hoc committee met and adopted its report, which was consequently presented as an interim report on Thursday, 6 May 2021. Also note that the subject matter being investigated is on serious concern as it affects the readiness of Nigeria's security agencies to combat terrorism and banditry. Resolves to rescind its decision on the ad hoc committee on the need to review the purchase, use, and control of arms, ammunition, and related hardware by military, paramilitary, and other law enforcement agencies in Nigeria, and grant the committee 2 weeks to conclude its assignment and present the final report thereof. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Seconder. Yes, sir. Cross river.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues. My name is Honorable Bid Uchenna Eke. Mr. Speaker, I represent the good people of Abom Bise, Ngopala Federal Constituency. I come from Imo State. I rise to second the motion ably moved by Chairman House Rule. I so second. Thank you.
Point of order? What's the point of order? Yeah, point of order. Point of order. Yeah, point of order.
Every point of order has its own preamble.
No, mention the section of the order. Thank you.
I'm a senior colleague. I'm a senior colleague. Talk with him with a little respect.
Honorable Osai, be guided. Take your seat, please. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Against say nay. That's habit. Respected colleagues, the fifth order of the day is a motion on the construction of Abakaleke Obuara Road, standing now Honorable Chinedu Oga. Honorable Oga is invited to move the motion. Motion stepped down by the leave of the House. Motion on need to investigate the status of contract awarded by the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency in Arochukwu, Ohafia Federal Constituency of Abia State, and now Honorable Unkoli Uko. Honorable Unko is invited to move the motion. Not on the floor? Equally is not on the floor.
Honorable colleagues, Honorable Nkole is not on the floor. I move that the motion be stepped down by the leave of the House. I so move.
Motion stepped down by the leave of the House. The spirit colleagues, the sixth order of the day is a motion on need to investigate the status of contract awarded by the Federal Road Maintenance Agency in Aruchuku. Sorry. I'm sorry. The spirit colleagues, the seventh order of the day is a motion on investigation of alleged illegal levies by the Federal Capital Territory Area Councils on business outlets and premises in the area council. Standing now, Honorable Tajidun Ayo Yusuf on receives invited to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues. A motion to investigate the alleged illegal levies by Federal Capital Territory Area Councils on business outlets and premises in the Area Council. The House notes that business outlets are private enterprises that have been under threat, intimidation, and coercion by the task force operating in the Federal Capital Territory Area Councils under different guises, forcing business owners to pay illegal fees which are not remitted into the government coffers but private pockets of the task force officials. Concerned that revenue meant to boost the economy of the Federal Capital Territory are diverted by task force officials from Abuja, Municipal Area Council, and other area councils who extort supermarket operators, hotel, cafeterias, furniture shops, artisans, and other businesses. Disturb that continual extortion of business operation in AMAC and other area councils in the Federal Capital Territory under the guise of collecting levies, tenement, and other charges by tax forces is affecting businesses, as some entrepreneurs who cannot cope with the multiple levies are forced to reduce their workforce, particularly hotel owners. Alarm that with the rising effect and fallout of COVID-19 pandemic, which has thrown the country into economic recession, if the illegal activities of the task force are not stopped by relevant government authorities, it will lead to loss of jobs, impact negatively on the economy, and increase insecurity. Result that one, all the Federal Capital Territory Administration to, in the interim, suspend the activities of the task force in all area councils of the FCT pending the completion of this investigation. Two, mandate the committee of FCT area council to investigate the matter and report back within 4 weeks for further legislative action. I so move, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues.
Seconder. Yes, sir. The recap.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable colleagues, my name is Honorable Sylvester Obag. I represent Abakaliki, the Z Federal Constituency. I'm from Lagos State.
Honorable Taji, go ahead. So you're a lucky person. You have 2 red caps supporting your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues.
Straightforward this thing.
Sir, it is very, very, very important at this hour to draw certain analysis and parameters to support this position. In order to climb with the COVID pandemic, government, executive, bring before the parliament stimulus bills to help reduce the burden on entrepreneurs. Take away levies as stimulus to reduce overhead to make business thrive. That's the only way you can boost the economy. The economy is a cycle. As you spend, it goes round. Unfortunately, in AMAC and other area councils, you find unimaginable, that have never been seen before level of levies. The list is inexhaustible. You hear things you have never heard in other climes. But Mr. Speaker, if these resources is even getting into the government coffer, we'll have said, okay, there's justification because it will come back to reduce the burden of the area council of federal government. And don't forget, sirs, my dear colleagues, I'm bringing this motion because the House of Representatives is the parliament of FCT. That's the state assembly of FCT. So we have a responsibility to take these things very seriously. These funny groups come in manners that are not civil, in manners that disrespectful to what FCT stands for. I've had privilege of going to certain places and I meet them in action. It's absurd. So, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, my appeal is that, first of all, let the world know that we are not operating a lawless system in FCT. That there's a parliament that has had the responsibility of checking such tendencies. Two, let's look into this. Why are tax forces coming up every day? What happened to the humongous civil service we have? And salaries are being paid every month for these people, and meanwhile, tax forces are saddled the responsibility. I have a practical example, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues. When they give you unreasonable bills, they will not expect you to negotiate. They know that the bill they are giving you ab initio does not make sense. So because of the huge amount they've asked you, they will make people go under the table to do things that is not in any way beneficiary to the FCT administration. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, most investors have areas in the country they target. FCT is one of the prime area an international investor want to come into because it is seen as more safer and it is a growing city. Presently, by the record of the inland revenue, apart from Lagos, no part of this nation gets revenue from VAT like FCT. So naturally, people want to do business here. But these little hindrances and bureaucratic tendencies that are not in any way pro-people will stall it and it will take a lot out of the system. I am appealing to us to support this motion and let the committee saddle its responsibility, do the needful to help our businesses grow. I say move, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Against say nay. The ayes have it. Respected colleagues, the eighth order of the day is motion on need to make learning facilities available for visually impaired students in government schools. Standing now, Honorable Sam Chinedu Wosu. Honorable Wosu is invited to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Sam Chinedu Onwaso. I represent the people of Awka North and South Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Anambra State. I stand here to raise the motion on the need to mandate the Federal Ministry of Education to make learning facilities available for virtually impaired students in government schools. The House notes the consistent but unintentional discrimination of the visually impaired students in government schools all over Nigeria. Also notes that they lack the proper learning facilities and instrumental support that will enhance their education. The House is aware that advances in technology have made available tools for visually impaired students to enable their participation in classroom activities, achieve grade-related goals, and to gain independence as a student. The House is also aware that tools like large print calendar, scientific calculator, Seeing Eye 500, Braille Compass, Wide Magnifier, Ovation, Ray Phone, Braille Note, Apex Note Taker, Embosser, among others, could be made available for them if the Federal Ministry of Education comes up with a plan that accommodates their plight. The House is worried that the visually impaired find it difficult to read and achieve their goals in classes, as most of their tools are now moribund, and upgrading them will aid in their better understanding in the classroom. The House believes that the ideal tools for the visually impaired students enable them to effectively compete with their peers in academics, irrespective of their health conditions. This gives them the feeling of societal acceptance and facilitates their independence on the long run. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, it will be good for the House to resolve that the call on the Federal Ministry of Education to make resolutions that will ensure inclusive education for the visually impaired. To urge the Federal Ministry of Education to make different learning tools available for visually impaired students in all the government schools across the nation. To mandate the committees on basic education, tertiary institution, science and technology, reformatory institutions, and legislative compliance
Honorable
to
Chair is
ensure
not leading
implementation.
the motion, sir.
I so move.
This
Mr.
motion read is not on our order paper.
Did you hear the observation of the acting chief whip?
Mr. Speaker, we can only approve what is contained in the order paper. Anything outside the order paper is ultra bias and therefore is of no effect.
I don't know, I've seen it on order 8. On the, thank you. No, if he's reading other things, he's reading it's on his own. Thank you. Be guided, my brother. Our procedure is that whenever you rise to speak to your motion, you are supposed to read exactly the content of what is given to us in the order paper, not to give out maybe a raw material that has been abridged or something like that, which is in the interest of the House too. Thank you. Seconder, in correctional services.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, my respected colleagues. My name is Amebana Edwin. I represent the good people of Ezano, Tisheli Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Ebonyi State. I rise to second the motion as moved by my colleague and friend. I so second. Thank you.
This is a very straightforward motion, so I now put a question. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Against say nay. The ayes have it. Respected colleagues, the ninth order of the day is a motion on flood that is ravaging Sagbama Ekweremo communities, standing now Honorable Frederick Agbedi. Honorable Agbedi is invited to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. Agbedi Yejemine Frederick is my name. I represent Sagbama Ekweremo Federal Constituency. I'm from Bayelsa State. Flood that is ravaging Sagbama Ekweremo communities. The House notes that Sagbama Ekweremo Road is one of the federal roads in Bayelsa State, connecting communities in Bayelsa State, Bayelsa West Senatorial District. Also notes that the road was constructed by federal government in the 70s from Sagbama Junction off the east-west road through Sagbama to Rua to Ebedebri and Galabri communities to Ekremon local government area and terminates at the seaside of Amatu community. Informed that due to incessant floods, the peculiar terrain, Sabama axis of the road has started caving in, leading to gully erosion, which is dangerous to the commuters plying the road, and it may be cut off from other parts of Bayelsa State if urgent measures are not taken to address this situation. House resolves to urge the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to construct 2 bridges at the damaged portion of the road to remedy. 2, mandate the Committee on Works to ensure implementation. I so move, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues.
Seconder. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name still remains Honorable Bellas and Shinkafi. I represent the entire people of Shinkafi Zulu Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise up here today to support the motion ably moved by my colleague, Mr. Frederick Agbadi. I so support, Mr. Speaker.
It's a very straightforward motion. It's an infrastructure too. So I now put the question. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Against say nay. The ayes have it. Respected colleagues, the 10th order of the day is consideration of a bill for an act to establish the National Institute of Credit Administration to ensure effective credit management practice and set standards and skills to be attained by persons seeking to become professional credit managers in Nigeria and for little matter. Honorable members recall that the bill was committed to the Committee of the Whole on Tuesday, 23rd July 2020. Honorable Abumumini Ari is to move for his consideration. Now on the floor.
Report be stepped down by the leave of the House. I so move.
Constitution of the vote is stepped down by the leave of the House. Respected colleagues, the 11th order of the day is consideration of a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of a Nigerian French language village as an inter-university center for French studies and for related matters. All members recall that the bill was committed to the Committee of the Whole on Wednesday, 27 February 2019. Honorable Magaji Dao Aliu will move for his consideration. Now on the floor too.
Order 12, item number 12, also to be moved by Honorable Magaji Dao. In view of the fact that he's not around, I also move that the consideration be stepped down by the leave of the House. I so move, Mr. Speaker. But I saw him just now. I don't know why. Maybe he's not ready.
By the leave of the House. Move for the adjournment of the House to tomorrow 11 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I am Abubakar Hassan Fulata. I represent Berniwa, Krika Sama, Budi Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do adjourn to tomorrow, Wednesday, 19th of May, 2021. I so move.
Konda. Manuti.
My name is Honorable Gideon Goni. I come from Kaduna State. I represent Kaura Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion, ably moved by the Chairman, Rules and Business, that this House do adjourn until tomorrow, 11 a.m.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Against say nay. The ayes have it. House is hereby adjourned to tomorrow, 11 a.m.